Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Trish. I am an ambulatory wheelchair user and mobility aid. I hate lives because I already messed up. My name is Trish. I am an ambulatory wheelchair user and mobility aid user, and I use this channel to share what my day to day life is like. Today, I thought it would be fun to do a live where I just answer some questions about traveling as a disabled person. While I wait for a few people to jump on, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and my travel background. I have been a wheelchair user in some capacity for about 14 years now. Um, my abilities kind of come and go as far as how much I can walk and how much I rely on the wheelchair, but right now I rely pretty heavily on the wheelchair. But I have loved to travel ever since I was a kid. And I'm really happy that I can now share that love with my own daughter. So I am going to look at some notes here and there, but if you come on and say something, I will answer as soon as I can. My family has a goal to visit every amusement park in the US, and this summer we hope to check at least 5 more off of our list. Last summer we did Dollywood for our big trip, and that was so much fun. It was super accessible too. I do have a few questions that were already submitted, so I'm going to jump into those. If you're watching this as a replay and you have additional questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll either answer them for you or make a separate video. So, the first question I got was, what's the biggest misconception people have about traveling with a wheelchair? And I think the biggest misconception is that wheelchair users don't travel. The industry is just not made for us. Air travel is difficult. It's hard to get a hotel room. So the people who are high up in the travel agency, in the travel industry, who are, designing this stuff, really don't think about us as consumers. And that is not the case. There are a lot of disabled people that don't travel, but I think more would if it was more accessible. Airline travel is a big one. Airline travel is an absolute nightmare with a wheelchair. They could break the wheelchair. We're not treated very good, or at least my experience has been I haven't been treated very good. Last time we flew, I was treated so badly that the captain apologized after the flight. Um, it just can be a whole mess. So, more disabled people would travel if the industry catered to us more. And there are places that have great accessibility. Like I mentioned Dollywood earlier. Dollywood had amazing accessibility. As far as theme parks go, Kennywood in near Pittsburgh, PA, they have pretty good accessibility. Uh, Disney is known for their accessibility. But if you have to fly to get to any of those places, then your trip could get off to a rocky start. So, the next question I have is, how do you navigate transportation once you get to your destination? You have to plan ahead. If you need a wheelchair accessible vehicle, you cannot just rely on one being available. Uh, some bigger cities, I'm sure that's a thing, but sometimes even when you prearrange, it doesn't come. Or you get a bus where no one knows how to work the wheelchair lift. That happened to us last time we went to Disney. We had arranged well in advance for a wheelchair vehicle, and a bus with a lift came, but nobody knew how to use it. So, um, definitely don't wait too long. If you need transportation, you have to do your research and be able to arrange that in advance. My best tip is to drive. If we can drive, we do. Then we already have a vehicle. So, next up is what are your must haves for accessible travel? And I'm going to just speak on this one for me because my needs are going to be different than everyone else's. Everybody has their own needs. Like, personally, I don't need to travel with like a shower wheelchair or any special medical equipment. But others do. Things that are important to me are anything that makes it easier to get to the destination. Like I have a huge duffel bag that can hold my husband, my and my daughter's clothes for like 3 days. And then we just have one rolling thing to take with us because with the wheelchair and a small child, it is really hard to be lugging a bunch of luggage. Uh Cup holders for my wheelchair, that's definitely a thing that I really love. Another thing is those little carabiners that people use for, like, hiking. We have a whole bag of those because I can attach, like, a drink bottle or something like that onto my wheelchair with those. Alright. Have you ever encountered any major accessibility barriers? Every single trip. I'd like to take a trip where I don't encounter major accessibility barriers, honestly. Um, I think the most dramatic one was last summer. Dollywood was great, but everything else in the Pigeon Forge Gatlinburg area was kind of a disaster. Um, it wasn't very accessible. Now Pigeon Forge was. Pigeon Forge, pretty much everywhere you could just park where you wanted to go. So that was super accessible. Um, but like Gatlinburg wasn't accessible at all. A lot of the buildings had steps. Um, Nobody was very friendly about trying to access accessibility. Like I'm not going to name the ride, but I went to one of those rides they had on the strip, which I was really looking forward to. And we actually ended up not being able to ride because of my daughter's height. But when I asked her about accessibility, she looked at me like I had two heads. Like she's just like glaring at me. And I feel like it's a perfectly reasonable thing to ask. Like if you're at a major attraction, can I stay in the wheelchair? Do I transfer? Can I take my wheelchair to my seat and then, have someone pull it out? That sort of thing. I don't think that's outrageous to ask, but the lady got like angry. Um, so that was just like really not accessible at all. Um, I also had a situation where I was denied to ride a mountain coaster because of my disability. And I talk about that in several videos. Kind of every time I do an accessible travel video, I talk about it. So you can go back and look if you want to hear the whole story. I'm not going to go over it again. But that was definitely a big barrier. Uh, I'm trying to think of some common barriers without like going into specific places. Not being able to get a handicap accessible room is a big one. And I believe the reason for that is that people without disabilities book them and there's nothing stopping them. Which there should be. Uh, like if you're watching and you don't have a disability, don't book the accessible rooms if you don't need one. Um, Another accessibility barrier tends to be like stores. Like if we go somewhere specifically because they have cute little shops, a lot of those aren't wheelchair accessible. I like to take trips for thrifting, like especially like Amish country in Ohio. They have a lot of thrift stores. A lot of thrift stores aren't accessible. Things like that are pretty common barriers. And the last question I have, if nobody else jumps on here with any, is tell me your biggest wheelchair travel fail. And I have two, and they're both kind of the same. Different places, same situation. Let's start with the most recent, when again, Gatlinburg. Um, we're probably never going back there. We do wanna go back to Dollywood, but, um, Gatlinburg sidewalks broke my wheelchair, and apparently that specific spot breaks several wheelchairs a week. So, we were way too far from my car to be able to hobble. My husband had to walk back while I sat on a bench with my daughter and get the car, and then thankfully it was right by like a parking lot, so the attendant saw it all happen, was nice enough to let him park there while he got me in the car. But then we had to like scramble around and call a bunch of places and get a rental wheelchair, and the rental wheelchair was not nice. It was very uncomfortable, hard to push, all that. So that was definitely a travel fail, and that was a travel fail that was my fault. I really wanted my custom manual chair with me, and I should have used my portable power chair instead. So if we do go back, I know that the electric chair is the way to go, or power chair. And then the other one I have, actually, same kind of thing. Our very first cruise, actually, my husband and I's only cruise, not my only cruise, but my husband and I's first cruise together and his only cruise. Um, I was newly disabled. I wasn't even like legally considered disabled at this point. I was just sick. We still thought I was getting better at this point, but not really. Um, Again, we went on the cruise and the wheelchair broke like one day in. So I had to rent a wheelchair, and thankfully the cruise line had one I could like use. I think I put down a deposit, but I got it back. So we were able to enjoy ourselves still, but I was not in the wheelchair I wanted to be in. And things like that happen. Wheelchairs break, and it usually seems to happen at the worst possible time. All right, I think that is all I have. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I share lots of fun travel stuff. I have so many plans this summer. And even in the spring, this time of year, I don't do as much only because I struggle with temperature regulations. So when it's cold, I can't leave the house. Uh, Today is yucky. I did leave the house earlier, but I didn't film anything for you. I just went to the gym. Um, but I hope to get to Holiday World this summer, and that'll be our first trip. And that's like a bucket list item for my husband. He really wants to go. And they have a new coaster this year they're opening up, so that's all exciting. We will do tons of Kennywood trips. We are season pass holders to Kennywood. And I don't even know what else, but whatever else happens, I'm going to share it with you. I also am in the process of working on a little studio space for myself, and I'm so excited to have somewhere dedicated to film in. That's probably a few months away. The room we're going to put it in is needs a lot of work. We've been using it as a storage space for the past like 10 years. So we're going to have to clean all that out first. But I am excited for the future. That is all I have for you today, but I do this almost every day, so I will see you soon.